The shadows beneath this story comes from Marcus. He's pieced together a semblance of normalcy in a quiet suburb outside Chicago these days, working a steady warehouse job and avoiding anything that reminds him of depths or decay. But every unexpected creak in his apartment floorboards or faint whiff of rust in the air yanks him right back to that godforsaken house in Detroit a decade ago when he thought a cheap fixer-upper could turn his luck around. It was late fall of 2014, the kind of gray, biting cold that seeps into your bones in the Midwest. Marcus had been scraping by in Cleveland after getting laid off from an auto parts factory, one of the many casualties of the lingering Great Recession. Detroit's collapse had sent shockwaves everywhere. The city's historic bankruptcy filing in 2013 left it drowning in $18 billion of debt. Neighborhoods hollowed out like carcasses. Entire blocks stood empty, houses auctioned off for pocket change as part of the massive blight removal efforts that would eventually raze tens of thousands of structures. Marcus saw ads online for properties going dirt cheap and figured, why not? He could flip one, make a quick buck, and get his life on track. So he loaded up his rusty Ford F-150 with tools and headed to the Motor City, navigating the cracked interstates lined with overgrown lots and faded billboards. He ended up in Delray, a southwest neighborhood that had seen better days. Once a bustling hub for Hungarian and Polish immigrants in the early 1900s, drawn by the booming factories along the Detroit River, it was now a wasteland of pollution and abandonment. Zug Island's industrial stacks belched smoke nearby, and EPA reports from the era warned of toxic soil from decades of heavy manufacturing. Marcus won the bid on a two-story Victorian on Elmwood Street for just $3,200, a steal, or so the auctioneer claimed. The house loomed like a relic from the roaring 20s, its paint flaking, windows boarded up with plywood scarred by graffiti. "Get out while you can" was spray painted across the front porch in dripping red letters, probably from squatters or kids messing around. He pushed open the front door, which groaned on swollen hinges, releasing a puff of musty air laced with neglect. Inside was a time warp of decay. The living room's hardwood floors buckled under layers of dust, and the kitchen's linoleum curled at the edges like dead skin. Upstairs, bedrooms held remnants of past lives, faded curtains, a broken mirror reflecting his wary face. But it was the door at the end of the back hallway that unsettled him most, a heavy oak slab nailed shut with thick rusted boards crisscrossing it, as if someone had barricaded it in haste. Marcus stared at it for a moment, a prickle running down his neck, but he shook it off. "Probably just to keep out animals or junkies," he muttered, grabbing a crowbar from his truck. The wood splintered as he pried the boards loose, nails screeching in protest. The door swung inward with a sigh, exhaling a wave of stale, metallic air that tasted like old pennies on his tongue, rust mixed with damp earth and something faintly organic, like rot. He flicked on his flashlight, the beam piercing the gloom as he descended the creaky wooden stairs. The basement unfolded like a forgotten crypt, concrete walls slick with moisture, shelves sagging under dusty jars filled with murky liquids, and in the far corner, a massive workbench scarred with deep gouges and dark stains that looked suspiciously like old blood. Tools hung from pegboards, hammers, chisels, saws, all coated in a fine layer of reddish dust. The air down here was thicker, heavier, pressing against his chest. Marcus poked around, figuring it for an old mechanic's lair from the house's heyday, when Delray thrummed with factory workers. He even unscrewed one jar, gagging at the sharp chemical stench, spotting what seemed like bone fragments floating inside. Weird hobby, he thought, screwing it back tight and heading upstairs. That night, he unrolled his sleeping bag in the living room, too exhausted to drive back to a motel. Sleep came fitfully, interrupted around 2 a.m. by a faint scraping sound, like metal dragging across stone, emanating from below. Heart thudding, he grabbed the flashlight and crept down. The basement was unchanged, but the hammer on the workbench lay crooked, as if recently used. He blamed it on the house settling. Detroit's soil was notorious for instability, pocked with sinkholes from buried industrial waste that had caused collapses swallowing cars in the 2010s. The next few days blurred into a grind of renovations. Marcus ripped out rotted drywall, sanded floors, and patched leaks, dreaming of turning this dump into something sellable. But the noises didn't stop. They evolved. At dawn, faint clinks echoed like distant chains rattling. By evening, muffled whispers slithered up through the vents, indistinguishable words that made his skin crawl. While sanding the hallway floorboards near the basement door, he uncovered deep scratches etched into the wood, frantic nail-like marks curving toward the threshold, as if something had clawed desperately to get out, or in. He sanded them smooth, but that night, the dreams began. In the dream, the basement expanded into an endless labyrinth, dimly lit by swinging bulbs casting long shadows. Shadowy figures hunched over the workbench, hammers rising and falling on something soft and yielding, accompanied by wet thuds and stifled cries. The air reeked of sweat, fear, and hot metal. As Marcus approached, the figures turned, gaunt, hollow-eyed men and women in tattered overalls, their skin ashen, clothes stained with dark splotches. They fixed him with pleading stares, mouths moving soundlessly before whispering names. Jacob, Maria, help us. He jolted awake, sheets soaked in sweat, the metallic tang clinging to his tongue like he'd inhaled rust. Shaken, he drove to the Detroit Public Library on Michigan Avenue, a sturdy brutalist structure that had weathered the city's decline. Digging through microfilm and old records, he pieced together the house's dark past. The Victorian had belonged to Elias Crow, a ruthless foreman in the 1930s during the Great Depression's stranglehold on Detroit. With jobs scarce and families starving, Crow ran an illegal sweatshop in the basement, luring desperate Eastern European immigrants with promises of work, making bootleg auto parts for the black market. He'd lock them in for 18-hour shifts, chaining some to benches if they complained. Disappearances piled up, workers vanishing after grueling nights, chalked up to the era's mob hits or the Detroit River's unforgiving currents. But a faded Detroit Free Press article from 1935 detailed a police raid. Bodies discovered bricked up in the basement walls, mutilated and hidden, victims of Crow's violent temper when they demanded fair pay. Crow evaded capture by hanging himself from a beam down there, his suicide note scrawled in erratic handwriting. The shadows won't let me go. They demand more. Rumors swirled of old-world curses brought by the immigrants, folklore from Hungary and Poland about spirits bound by blood debts, amplified by the foreman's suicide. Marcus dismissed it as sensational tabloid fodder, the kind that flourished in blighted areas like Delray, where abandoned homes spawned ghost tales to explain the eerie quiet. But back at the house, the disturbances ramped up. Tools began relocating on their own. He'd set a screwdriver on the bench, turn away, and find it driven point first into the wall like a stake. The jars on the shelves bubbled faintly as if heated from within, their contents swirling with unseen agitation. One humid afternoon, while wiring new lights in the basement, a cold, clammy hand clamped onto his shoulder. He spun, flashlight swinging wildly. Nothing there, but a whisper brushed his ear. "Join us." His pulse raced. He bolted upstairs, slamming the door. Paranoia crept in like fog off the river. Marcus started sleeping with a hunting knife under his pillow, jumping at every shadow. He avoided neighbors at first, but one evening, the elderly woman next door, Mrs. Kowalski, a lifelong Delray resident with a thick Polish accent, caught him over the chain-link fence. Her house was one of the few still occupied, surrounded by vacant lots overgrown with weeds. "That place," she said, crossing herself with gnarled fingers, "it eats souls. After the factory started closing in the 80s, squatters tried crashing there. None stayed long. Screams from the basement at night like people trapped." She recounted how the 2008 housing crash worsened it. Foreclosures emptying streets, leaving homes to rot and stir up old unrest. "Crow's curse," she whispered. "He bound those poor workers' spirits. Don't dig too deep, boy." The warnings gnawed at him. Marcus invited his girlfriend Sarah up from Ohio for support. She arrived with takeout from Lafayette Coney Island, a Detroit institution since 1917, famous for its chili dogs. They shared laughs upstairs, trying to normalize the chaos. But as night fell, Sarah heard the whispers too, faint calls of her name slithering through the floorboards. In bed, she screamed awake, invisible hands yanking her ankle toward the hallway stairs. Marcus pulled her free, but deep scratches bloomed on her leg, drawing beads of blood that smelled faintly of rust. "They're hungry," she gasped, eyes wide with terror. "Hungry for more." She packed and left at first light, begging him to follow. Desperate, Marcus reached out to Father Nowak at St. Hedwig's Church, a historic Polish parish in southwest Detroit that had served immigrants since the early 1900s. The priest, a grizzled man in his 60s with a history of dealing with disturbances in the community, arrived with a vial of holy water and a worn crucifix. His face paled at the basement threshold, sensing the oppressive weight in the air. "This isn't mere ghosts," he said gravely after sprinkling the stairs. "It's a malediction, a binding curse. Crow's suicide sealed those souls here, feeding on guilt and despair. They attempted an exorcism. Father Nowak chanted Latin prayers, the air growing frigid, breath visible in plumes. But the basement rebelled. Tools clattered off shelves, walls cracked with thunderous snaps, and a guttural howl erupted, shattering nearby windows in a spray of glass. A hammer flew like a missile, bruising the priest's shoulder. He retreated, advising, "Burn it if you must, but get out. You're the key now. They want you to join the dead." Marcus endured 2 more hellish weeks, his sanity unraveling thread by thread. Scratches appeared on his skin overnight, forming crude words. Stay, pay. Objects hurled themselves, wrenches embedding in plaster, jars exploding in shards. The air thickened with a choking rust scent, making his eyes water and throat burn. He saw the figures in reflections now, gaunt faces peering from mirrors, beckoning with skeletal hands. Sleep became impossible, haunted by visions of hammering bones into walls. Finally, he cracked. At dawn, he fled, leaving tools, clothes, everything behind, the house shrinking in his rearview mirror like a lurking beast. He sold it remotely for pennies to an out-of-state investor who never occupied it. By 2018, the city's aggressive blight removal program, demolishing over 20,000 structures amid urban renewal efforts, bulldozed the Victorian, reducing it to rubble. But the shadows didn't perish with the house. In Evanston, Illinois, where Marcus resettled, the manifestations trailed him. Tools in his garage rearranged overnight into ominous patterns, scratches etched messages on his bathroom mirror. Come back. A 2019 email from the investor shattered any illusion of escape. What the hell did you leave in that basement? Contractors gutting the place before demo unearthed human bones embedded in the concrete, carved with archaic symbols matching Crow's folklore-tinged curse. The Detroit police briefly investigated, linking it to unsolved Depression-era vanishings, as reported in a brief Detroit news piece headlined, "Grisly Relics Unearthed in Delray Ruin." Online forums like Reddit's r Detroit and r Paranormal buzzed with echoes. Flippers in nearby neighborhoods like Brightmoor and Corktown reported similar haunts, tools animating, whispers naming long-dead workers. It was as if the demolition had shattered the curse, scattering fragments into the city's fractured foundations, seeping through the rust belt like contaminated groundwater. The pursuit intensified. During Chicago's brutal 2022 winter, reminiscent of Detroit's 2014 polar vortex that froze pipes and isolated neighborhoods, Marcus's apartment basement flooded inexplicably. Maintenance blamed burst lines, but he found rusted nails bobbing in the water, arranged in runes from the old records. That night, power outages trapped him in the dark, cold fingers brushing his ankles. Even in his current high-rise with no basement access, elevators stall between floors, enclosing him in metal boxes reeking of rust, vents hissing, debt unpaid. Friends have distanced themselves after his outbursts, convinced they're infected by the shadows. Last year, Marcus returned to Detroit for closure, parking near the empty lot on Elmwood. Grass choked the foundation cracks, but as dusk fell, he glimpsed movement, dark shapes shifting underground, like roots probing for light. His truck radio crackled to life with static voices, names, pleas, the relentless clang of hammers on bone. Marcus lives on edge now, steering clear of sublevels, taking stairs over elevators, scanning shadows for faces. But the scraping persists under his floors at night, faint and insistent, a reminder that the shadows beneath aren't confined to one house or city. They're patient, woven into the rust belt's decaying veins, waiting for the next door to creak open, the next soul to dig too deep. If you hear that metallic drag in the quiet hours, echoing from below, it's not the pipes. They've found you, and the debt comes due. The Smoker, in room 402. This story comes from Nancy. It happened in the summer of 2005 when she was just about 4 or 5 years old. Nancy's cousin had just graduated college, and to celebrate, the whole extended family, 8 of us in total, decided to hit the road from the suburbs of Philadelphia to Atlantic City, New Jersey. We were excited for the beaches, the boardwalk, the flashing lights of the casinos. Little did we know that excitement would turn into pure terror. Let me set the scene for you. My parents, David and Sarah, were your average hard-working folks. Dad worked as a mechanic in a Philly garage, fixing up old Fords and Chevys, while Mom was a nurse at a local hospital, dealing with night shifts and endless paperwork. Uncle Ted, Mom's brother, was a plumber who'd seen his share of tough jobs in the city's aging pipes. He lived alone after his divorce, and his one vice was chain-smoking those harsh, unfiltered Marlboros. The smell clung to him like a second skin, acrid, bitter, the kind that makes your eyes water if you're too close. To save money on the trip, We weren't exactly rolling in dough. We all chipped in for one big family suite at this rundown hotel a few blocks off the boardwalk. It was one of those old red brick buildings from the 70s, the kind that's seen better days. The lobby reeked of mold and cheap bleach, with faded posters of Atlantic City's glory days on the walls. But hey, the top floor suite was a steal at $150 a night during peak season. Spacious room with 3 queen beds, a pull-out couch, and a view of the parking lot below. The carpet was this deep burgundy, worn thin in spots, and the walls had peeling wallpaper that whispered of forgotten stories. We arrived in the late afternoon, the sun dipping low over the ocean, casting long shadows through the windows. Everyone dumped their bags, and right away, Uncle Ted lit up a cigarette, his Zippo lighter flicking with that familiar metallic snap. Mom wrinkled her nose and waved her hand. "Ted, what the hell? This is a non-smoking room, and there are kids here. Take that outside on the balcony now," Uncle Ted grumbled, cigarette dangling from his lip, and shuffled out to the rusty iron balcony overlooking the cracked asphalt parking lot. The rest of us unpacked, chatting about plans for the boardwalk. Maybe hit the arcades, grab some saltwater taffy. No one noticed the subtle chill in the air or how the room felt watched. That afternoon, while Dad, Uncle Ted, my cousin, and the kids splashed in the hotel's outdoor pool, a small, chlorine-heavy thing with murky water, Mom stayed back to shower and organize. Uncle Ted opted out of swimming. He wasn't much for water. Instead, he lounged on the balcony, reading a local paper about new casino openings, puffing away on his smokes. The sea breeze carried the scent of salt and distant fried food from the boardwalk. Mom was in the bathroom, lathering up her hair under the lukewarm shower when it started. A sharp, burning smell hit her, not the faint tobacco waft from outside, but something intense, like singed hair or flesh charring on a grill. She shut off the water, heart skipping a beat. Click, click. The sound of a Zippo lighter, clear as day, right there in the tiled, locked bathroom. Metal on flint, sparking flame. "Ted," she called out, irritation creeping in. "What are you doing out there? Don't play with fire near the door." Silence. Wrapping a towel around herself, dripping water on the floor, she cracked the door. The room was empty. Balcony door shut tight. Peering through the glass, she saw Uncle Ted dozing in his chair, cigarette butt smoldering in his fingers. Frowning, she approached the dark wooden coffee table in the center of the room, the one the maid had wiped clean earlier. Her blood ran cold. 3 scorch marks marred the varnish. 3 half-burned cigarette butts, still smoking, lined up perfectly along the edge. They sizzled into the wood, acrid smoke curling up. She grabbed a glass of water from the minibar and doused them, hands shaking. Who did this? The door was locked. Ted was outside. And why arrange them like that, like some ritualistic warning? She rushed out to wake Ted. "Did you come in here? Is someone pranking us?" He blinked sleepily. "Nah, sis, been here the whole time. What's wrong?" She explained, but he shrugged it off. Probably the kids messing around earlier. Let's not ruin the trip." They pushed it aside, but a tension hung in the air, like static before a storm. We all headed out for the afternoon, strolling the boardwalk, the sounds of slot machines and seagulls filling the air. But Mom kept glancing back at the hotel, uneasy. As evening fell, the neon lights of Atlantic City lit up the sky like a carnival from hell. We prepped for a night walk on the boardwalk. Uncle Ted babysat me while Mom and Dad changed in the bathroom. He flipped on the old TV to cartoons, SpongeBob or something cheerful. and left his pack of Marlboros and Zippo on the table before stepping out for another smoke. Mid-puff, staring at the traffic below, he heard it. Click, click, from inside. He turned, peering through the glass. My heart pounds just recalling what he saw. There I was, little me, standing by the table. But not like a kid. Hunched over, shoulders slumped like an old man, one hand braced on the wood, the other clutching the Zippo. My face twisted, muscles twitching, mouth drooping to one side in a grotesque parody of a stroke. Eyes rolled back, whites glaring at the flame I flicked on. My lips curled into a leering ancient grin, sick, knowing, like a veteran smoker's satisfaction. Click. I stared at the fire, blew it out with a raspy breath. Click again. My tiny fingers dipped into the pack, pulling a cigarette with expert ease, placing it between my lips like I'd done it 1,000 times. Uncle Ted burst in. "Nancy, what the hell are you doing? Drop that!" He snatched the lighter. The moment he touched me, I shuddered violently, like jolted awake. My eyes flipped normal, blue, innocent. I blinked, saw the cigarette in my hand and burst into tears. "Uncle Ted, I'm scared." There was a man. He made me hold it. His face was all torn up, smoke coming from his throat. He hugged me tight, scanning the empty room. The temperature plummeted, icy despite the summer heat. That singed hair smell surged, mixed with rot. He knew something unholy lingered here, but he kept quiet, not wanting to spoil the celebration. "Shh, it's just a bad dream, kiddo. Don't tell your folks." That night, we all crammed into the room for sleep. The waves crashed outside. A lullaby turned ominous. Uncle Ted took the single bed near the door, tossing restlessly. Around 3 a.m. he woke, not to noise but cold. Freezer cold, AC off, and smells, cheap tobacco, stale whiskey, decaying flesh. Eyes open, in the dim neon glow through curtains, he saw him. A burly man on my parents' bed edge, back turned in a tattered leather jacket, 80s mobster style, hunched, watching them sleep. The figure lifted a glowing cigarette, inhaled deeply. Shh, oat, wet, gurgling suck like lungs filled with fluid. Flame flared, turning his head. Uncle Ted froze, the face ruined. Cheek slashed open, flesh flapped back, exposing teeth and bone. Black blood oozed, dripping. Lidless eyes bulged, milky, gleeful malice fixed on Ted. Inhale, and smoke jetted not from lips, but the gaping throat slash. He grinned, teeth bared through the gash, rose, glided, no footsteps, toward the bathroom. Passing the table, 4 burning butts appeared, smoking in a cross shape. He phased through the closed door. Then, cough, cough, hacking, wet, agonized flush, whoosh. Laughter, heh, heh, hey. Doorknob rattled, click, click, twisting violently. Uncle Ted screamed, "Run, get out now, it's a ghost." Chaos. We grabbed wallets, keys, phones, left everything else. Barefoot sprint downstairs, no elevator dare. In the lobby, panting, the night clerk, an older black man, nodded knowingly. "Room 402, right?" Dad stammered. "How'd you know?" He sighed. "You're not the first. Should have sealed it off." Back in the 80s, Atlantic City was Mafia Central. Philly crime family ran the show. Guys like Nicodemo, Little Nicky Scarfo. Room 402 housed one of his enforcers, a heavy smoker, brutal thug. Internal hit, ambushed, face slashed, throat cut while smoking on the bed. Died coughing blood in the bathroom. Made headlines. Philadelphia Inquirer, 1984 killings. His spirit stays smoking, terrorizing families, especially smokers, reliving his death. We never went back, had luggage shipped. Driving home on dark highways, Uncle Ted tossed his smokes out the window, quit cold turkey after 30 years, but sometimes at night he'd hear clicks, smell burning hair. And me, I still dream of that face, smoke from the throat. Is he gone, or waiting for another family, another smoker in room 402? Listen close tonight. Do you hear the lighter? Click. There are 7 of them. This is the confession of Hannah, a young woman currently living in the port city of Wilmington, North Carolina. What she is about to tell isn't just a ghost story. It's a testament to a love so fierce that it crossed the boundary between the living and the dead. The story begins in 2010, the year Hannah turned 15. That year also marked exactly 15 years since the death of her great-grandpa Jack. Jack was a World War II veteran, a man forged in the brutal heat of the Pacific Theater. He was a man of steel, disciplined, stern, and terrifying to outsiders. But strangely, for his little great-granddaughter Hannah, he had a soft spot the size of the ocean. When he was alive, he had a peculiar habit during Sunday dinners, a sacred tradition in the South. Due to old age and the trauma of starvation during the war, he rarely ate much. Instead, he would sit in his heavy oak rocking chair at the head of the table. He wouldn't touch a fork. He would just sit there, tapping his fingers on the armrest, watching his family eat with an intensity that was almost unnerving. He used to say that after seeing so much hunger in the war, watching his family fed and full was the only meal he needed. But then he passed away. Time moved on. The Sunday dinner tradition faded into casual meals in front of the TV. The old man's rocking chair was pushed into the corner of the living room, gathering dust, ignored and forgotten. No one remembered to set a plate for him anymore. That was when the atmosphere in the old house began to shift. Hannah was the first to notice. She liked to eat her dinner sitting on the living room rug to watch TV, right next to that empty chair. At first, it was subtle. Creak, creak. In the dead heat of a North Carolina summer, with the windows closed and the AC off, that heavy oak chair would start to rock. It wasn't a random sway. It was a rhythmic, steady motion, exactly the way Grandpa Jack used to rock when he was deep in thought. Sometimes, while chewing her food, Hannah would feel a sudden drop in temperature, followed by a gentle, heavy pressure on her shoulder. It didn't feel scary. It felt familiar. It felt like a callous, rough hand patting her, as if saying, "Slow down, child. Chew your food," she told her mother, Martha. Her mom gave a sad smile and said, "He's probably just visiting. You know you were his favorite. Next time, show some respect. Invite him to eat." But the gentle visits didn't last. Grandpa Jack began to get angry about being ignored. Martha started having recurring nightmares. Every night, she found herself standing in a pitch-black dining room. At the head of the table, Jack was sitting in his chair. But he wasn't the kind old man anymore. His eyes were wide and white, staring right through her. He would slam his fist on the table, the sound echoing like a gunshot. "You think because I'm dead, I'm gone? Hannah turns her back on me when she eats. I want to see her face. Why does no one invite me to the table?" The rage in his voice would wake Martha up, soaked in sweat. She knew the spirits of the old generation demanded respect. The next morning, she made a new rule. "Hannah, before you take a single bite, you look at that chair and you invite him. Do not make him mad." Hannah obeyed. From then on, it became a ritual. She would set her plate down, look at the empty chair, and say, "Grandpa Jack, please come eat with us. And every single time, without fail, the moment the words left her lips, the chair would shudder once, and then begin a slow, satisfied rock. However, not everyone respected the ghost. Uncle Bobby, Hannah's uncle, was a skeptic who had always clashed with the strict old man. One afternoon, Bobby came over for a visit. Seeing Hannah politely inviting the heir to dinner, he laughed, grabbed a slice of pizza, and flopped down right into Grandpa Jack's chair. "The old man's been dust for 15 years, Bobby scoffed, putting his feet up. "He ain't eating nothing. I'll take this seat." The words barely left his mouth when the smile was wiped from his face. The chair suddenly froze. It stopped rocking completely, becoming as rigid as stone. Then, right in front of Hannah's eyes, the chair bucked forward with violent force, as if someone standing behind it had kicked it over. Uncle Bobby was launched into the air. He hit the hardwood floor, face first, with a sickening thud, his pizza flying across the room. He scrambled backward on his hands and knees, eyes wide with terror, gasping for breath as if the wind had been knocked out of him. He ran out the front door and never sat in that chair again. From that day on, Hannah knew the general was still on duty. Fast forward to 2010. Hannah was 15, rebellious, and bored with family traditions. She wanted excitement, and she found it in Kyle. Kyle was 17, the town's resident bad boy. He was a dropout with tattoos up his neck who drove a lifted, blacked-out Chevy Silverado that roared like a beast. Her parents forbade her from seeing him, which, of course, only made Hannah want him more. One fateful Saturday, Kyle texted her, "Big party tonight, way out in the backwoods. Just me and my boys. Bonfire, beer, music, secret spot. Be ready at 7. Hannah's heart raced. She lied to her mom, saying she was going to a friend's house to study. The night before the date, Hannah went to sleep excited, but her dreams were dark. She dreamt she was sitting at the dinner table, but the room was freezing. All the plates suddenly shattered. The rocking chair in the corner began to thrash violently against the wall. Bang, bang, bang! Out of the shadows stepped Great-Grandpa Jack. He wasn't sitting. He was standing, towering over her, wearing his full military dress uniform. His face was twisted in a mask of fury she had never seen before. He lunged forward, grabbing Hannah by the shoulders, shaking her so hard her teeth rattled. His voice wasn't a whisper, it was a guttural roar. "Do not go! You listen to me! Do not get in that truck!" Hannah cried in the dream, "Why, Grandpa? He loves me!" The old man leaned in, his nose touching hers, his eyes burning. "He is a liar! Look, there are 7 of them, a pack of wolves. They are waiting to kill you." He pointed into the darkness behind her. Hannah turned and saw 7 shadowy figures, faceless and predatory, crouching in the dark, waiting to pounce. She woke up screaming, her heart hammering against her ribs. But as the morning sun came up, the fear faded. She convinced herself it was just a nightmare caused by guilt. Grandpa is just old-fashioned, she thought. He doesn't get it. That evening, she snuck out and climbed into the passenger seat of Kyle's massive truck. They sped off, leaving the lights of Wilmington behind, heading deep into the rural pine barrens. The further they drove, the darker the roads became. The trees closed in like cage bars. Suddenly, bang! A deafening explosion from the rear. The truck swerved violently, nearly ditching into a swamp. Kyle slammed the steering wheel, screaming profanities. "My tire! I just bought these!" He got out and changed the tire, fuming with rage. Hannah sat inside, shivering. She felt like someone was watching her from the tree line. They got back on the road. Kyle was driving faster now, angry and impatient. But 2 miles later, clunk, hiss. The engine sputtered and died. Steam poured out from under the hood. The radiator had blown. Kyle kicked the door open. "What is happening? This truck is brand new." It was pitch black. They were miles from civilization. Hannah suddenly remembered the dream. Do not get in that truck. And then she felt it. The air in the cab grew heavy. She smelled it. Old tobacco and menthol rub, Grandpa Jack's scent. And she saw the back of the truck sink down. The suspension groaned. It looked as if an invisible giant hand was pressing down on the roof of the truck, crushing it into the asphalt, refusing to let it move another inch toward those woods. Kyle was furious. He tried to call his friends, but the signal was dead. He finally had to call his dad to bring a tow truck. The date was ruined. Hannah went home disappointed, silently blaming her grandfather for ruining her night. 3 days later, Hannah walked into the kitchen for breakfast. Her father was standing there, holding the local newspaper. His face was pale, his hands trembling. He slammed the paper down in front of her. Look at your boyfriend." Hannah looked down. The headline screamed at her. "Sheriff's Depp busts Wolfpack ring. 7 arrested for kidnapping and assault." There were 7 mugshots, and right in the center, the ringleader was Kyle. The article was horrific. This group of 7 men had been luring young girls to an abandoned hunting cabin in the woods for parties. There, they would drug and assault them. On the night Hannah's date was ruined, the night the truck mysteriously broke down over and over, they had managed to pick up another girl, a 16-year-old hitchhiker. She was currently in the ICU, fighting for her life after being brutalized by all 7 men. The newspaper slipped from Hannah's fingers. She collapsed onto the floor, sobbing uncontrollably. She remembered the dream. There are 7 of them. They will kill you. Grandpa Jack hadn't been ruining her fun. He had been fighting a war from the other side. He had blown the tire. He had crushed the radiator. He had held that truck down with the weight of his soul to keep his little girl out of that cabin. Hannah ran into the living room. She fell to her knees in front of the empty oak rocking chair, burying her face in the cushion, whispering, "Thank you. I'm sorry, Grandpa. Thank you." And in the quiet of that morning, the heavy chair creaked. It began to rock, slowly, gently. Creak, creak. And Hannah felt a rough, warm hand rest on her head, stroking her hair, letting her know she was safe. The old soldier had completed his final mission. The candy from Blackwater Lake. Imagine a small, God-fearing town named Hollow Creek, buried deep within the Appalachian Mountains. It's the kind of place where the fog clings to the pine trees like wet cotton, and the air always tastes a little bit like rusted iron. Back in the summer of 1995, we were just a pack of wild kids, about 10 of us, ranging from 5 to 15 years old. We spent our days running through the dense woods, playing hide and seek in abandoned barns, and wading through the freezing currents of the creek. In our loud, chaotic group, there was one member we pitied, yet cruelly mocked. Her name was Lily Miller. That year, Lily was 15. She had the body of a grown woman, but her mind was permanently trapped at the age of a toddler. While we were learning algebra and history, Lily was still in the church basement, struggling to color inside the lines. We called her Slow Lily, but in Hollow Creek, secrets rot just beneath the surface. I only learned the truth years later. Lily wasn't born sick. She was broken by faith. Lily's mother, Sarah, went into labor during a blizzard. The roads were blocked, so she had to birth the baby at home. But Lily's grandmother, old Agnes, a woman whose religious zeal bordered on madness, believed in a twisted prophecy. She was convinced that for the child to be blessed and wash away the family's poverty, it had to be born exactly when the church bell rang at high noon. But Sarah's water broke at 10 in the morning. Instead of helping her daughter, Agnes did the unthinkable. She physically held Sarah down. She pressed her heavy hands against her daughter's legs, forcing them closed. She prayed loudly over Sarah's screams, chanting, "Not yet! Wait for the Lord's hour! Hold it in for the glory of God!" She forced that baby to stay inside the womb for 2 agonizing hours. When the bell finally rang, Lily was born. She didn't cry. She was blue, the color of a bruised plum. The lack of oxygen had destroyed the best parts of her brain before she ever took her first breath. She survived, but the real Lily died in that bedroom, sacrificed for a superstitious miracle that never came. By the time our story takes place, Lily had been pulled out of school. The only person in town who treated her with genuine kindness was Delilah, the pastor's 18-year-old daughter. Delilah was the golden girl of Hollow Creek, beautiful but haunted. Her life was a tragedy of its own. She had fallen in love with an outsider, a mechanic from the city, which was a sin in the eyes of her strict, controlling father. The pastor locked her away, forbidding the romance, planning to marry her off to a wealthy elderly deacon to purify her soul. Broken and hopeless, Delilah threw herself into Blackwater Lake, a stagnant, murky body of water deep in the woods. When they pulled her out, her body was bloated and pale as wax. Because suicide was considered a mortal sin by the town's hardline doctrine, Delilah was denied a burial in the church cemetery. Her father, fearing for his reputation, ordered her to be buried in the Sinner's Field, a patch of unconsecrated ground on the edge of the forest, where the weeds grew tall and wild. No headstone, just 2 sticks tied together in a crude cross. About a month after Delilah's death, our group was playing baseball near that field. We knew the grave was nearby, but we were kids. The thrill of the game outweighed the fear of the dead. Suddenly, we noticed Lily. She hadn't been with us earlier. She was walking out of the tall grass of the Sinner's Field, clutching a dirty cloth bundle to her chest. We ran over to her, jeering. "Hey, Lily, what are you doing in the boneyard? What do you have there?" As we got closer, a smell hit us. It wasn't the smell of a rotting corpse, but the smell of the lake, stagnant water, wet mud, and decaying algae. Lily looked at us, her eyes wide and unnervingly bright. She smiled a crooked, drooling smile and whispered, "Candy." Sister Delilah gave Lily candy. She opened the bundle. Inside was a pile of old taffy and hard candies. The wrappers were faded, slimy, and covered in grit, as if they had been buried underground. We were dirt-poor mountain kids. We didn't care where it came from. We just saw sugar. "Give it here," the biggest boy in our group shouted, reaching for the bundle. For the first time ever, Lily fought back. She yanked it away, screaming in her garbled voice, "No, Sister Delilah said it's for Lily only. She said if you eat it, your bellies will rot. She said she'll come take it back." "You crazy freak," I laughed. "Delilah's dead. She's worm food. Give us the candy." We overpowered her easily. We snatched the bundle, tore open the slimy wrappers, and shoved the candy into our mouths. It tasted sweet, but as soon as I swallowed, a metallic, fishy taste coated the back of my throat. It tasted like I had just swallowed a mouthful of lake water. That night, the curse took hold. I woke up screaming with stomach cramps so severe I thought I was dying. I spent hours curled up on the bathroom floor, shivering. When I finally drifted into a feverish sleep, the nightmare came. I dreamt I was walking through Hollow Creek, but the town was empty, dead silent. Then, out of the fog, she came. Delilah. She looked exactly as she did when they dragged her out of the lake. Her skin was bloated and spongy. Her white dress was dripping wet. She moved toward me, gliding without touching the ground. Her eyes were rolled back, showing only the whites. She opened her mouth, and water poured out like a fountain as she shrieked. "You stole from the innocent! I gave that to Lily! Give it back!" Her hand, cold, clammy, and smelling of muck, grabbed my throat. I could feel the water from her skin soaking into my pajamas. "I'm coming for you." I woke up gasping for air, clutching my throat. My neck was wet. The next day at school, all 10 of us looked like walking corpses, pale, terrified. We all had the same stomach pain. We all had the exact same dream. From that day on, we treated Lily like a leper. We were terrified of her. We threw rocks if she came too close. Isolated and lonely, Lily started wandering off on her own. Locals began to whisper. Hunters and farmers passing by the Sinner's Field reported seeing Lily sitting by Delilah's unmarked grave for hours. Sometimes her mother, Sarah, was there too. Sarah told the neighbors that Lily refused to eat at home. She would clamp her mouth shut and point to the door. "Sister Delilah is calling. Dinner time," Lily would say. Desperate, Sarah had to walk her daughter a mile to the grave. Only when the bowl of soup was placed on the dirt mound would Lily eat. She would eat happily, chatting with the empty air, laughing at jokes no one else could hear. "Eat, sister," Lily would say, breaking a cookie in half and placing one piece on the grave. "It's good." This went on until the 40th night after Delilah's death. In the old mountain traditions, they say the soul wanders the earth for 40 days before facing judgment. That day, Lily didn't ask to go to the grave. She was unusually calm. She ate her dinner at the kitchen table, then curled up at her mother's feet like a faithful dog. Sarah was relieved, thinking the madness had passed. They went to bed early as the summer storm rolled in, shaking the small wooden house with thunder. Around 3 a.m., Sarah woke up. The room was freezing. In the flashes of lightning, she saw Lily sitting upright in bed, legs crossed, staring at her. "Go back to sleep, baby," Sarah mumbled. Lily didn't blink. When she spoke, it wasn't her voice. It wasn't the slur of a toddler-minded girl. It was a mature, sorrowful, and hollow voice. It was Delilah's voice. "Miss Sarah," the voice said, "Lily is too tired." Sarah froze, her blood turning to ice. "Lily, what are you saying?" "This world is too cruel for her, Miss Sarah," the voice continued, calm and cold. "They hurt her. You cry over her. You think she is a burden. I hear you weeping at night. She hears it too." No, I love her," Sarah stammered, pulling the blanket up. "I know," the voice soothed, "but I am leaving tonight. My 40 days are up. I'm taking her with me. Where we are going, no one will call her stupid. She will be safe with me." "Stop it. Lie down," Sarah screamed. "Goodbye, Miss Sarah." Lily lay down. She straightened her legs. She folded her hands over her chest like a corpse in a casket. And then the water came. It didn't rain through the roof. The water came from Lily. It seeped out of her pores, her ears, her mouth. Cold, dark, muddy water. It soaked the sheets instantly. The smell of the swamp filled the small room, choking the air. Sarah shook her daughter, screaming for help, but Lily was gone. When the coroner arrived, he was baffled. Lily lay in a bed soaked with gallons of water, yet the ceiling was dry. Her lungs were filled with fluid. The official cause of death was secondary drowning, pulmonary edema. But the most haunting thing was her face. Lily wasn't afraid. She lay there, cold and wet, with a peaceful, subtle smile on her lips. They buried Lily the next day, right beside Delilah in the sinner's field. Two outcasts finally together in the cold earth. The feast at death's door. Before we begin, ask yourself this: how much do you trust your phone screen? We use cameras to see the people we love when we can't be with them. But cameras, they see differently than human eyes. They pick up frequencies, shadows, and glitches that aren't supposed to be there. This story comes from a girl named Layla. It was 2017. Layla was living in Chicago, working long shifts to make ends meet, while her family lived down in the bayou of Louisiana. Layla loved her grandmother, Nana Rose, more than anything. But Nana was dying. Dementia had taken her mind, and old age had taken her body. She'd been bedridden for months, barely able to swallow a spoonful of soup. One stormy Friday afternoon, Layla's phone blew up. 10 missed calls from her mom and her cousin, Sarah. Layla called Sarah back on FaceTime immediately. The connection was terrible. The screen was pixelated, lagging, full of digital noise. "Layla," Sarah sobbed, holding the phone up. "Say goodbye. She's going." Through the grainy video, Layla saw her grandmother's bedroom. It was crowded. Aunts, uncles, crying cousins. In the corner, Father Thomas, the local parish priest, was standing over the bed holding a vial of holy oil, reciting the last rites. Nana Rose looked like a skeleton wrapped in skin. Her eyes were closed. Her chest barely moved. Layla pressed her face to her phone, crying, whispering, "I love you, Nana. I love you." But then, the glitch happened. Just as Father Thomas whispered, "May the Lord free you from sin." Nana Rose's eyes snapped open. They didn't just open, they bulged. Her pupils were fully dilated, two black voids swallowing the whites of her eyes. She didn't look at the priest. She didn't look at the family. Her eyes darted around the room like a starving wolf. And then, the woman who hadn't moved her legs in 6 months sat up. She sat up straight, rigid as a board, like a puppet pulled by invisible strings. Hungry. The voice that came out of her wasn't Nana's soft southern drawl. It was deep, guttural, like gravel grinding in a mixer. The family screamed and backed away. Layla's mom stepped forward, trembling. "Mama, do you want some broth?" Nana swatted her daughter's hand away with terrifying strength, sending her stumbling. She lunged toward the bedside table. There was a tray of food there, a bucket of fried chicken someone had brought for the grieving family. Nana Rose grabbed a chicken breast with both hands. She didn't eat it. She destroyed it. She shoved the meat, the skin, and the bones into her mouth. Crunch, crack, snap. The sound of snapping bones was amplified through Layla's phone speaker. It was wet and sickening. "Oh my God," Layla covered her mouth. "Stop her." Nana ate voraciously. Grease ran down her chin, staining her white nightgown. She swallowed sharp, jagged bones whole without even blinking. In seconds, she devoured half the bird. Father Thomas realized this wasn't dementia. He slammed his Bible shut and grabbed his crucifix. "In the name of Jesus Christ, I command you to stop. What are you?" Nana froze. Slowly, mechanically, she turned her head to face the priest. Her mouth was full of chewed meat. She smiled, revealing gums bleeding from the sharp bones. She let out a loud, wet belch, and then she purged. Gack. Chunks of undigested chicken and black bile poured out of her mouth, soaking the bed sheets. But Layla wasn't looking at the vomit. She was looking at what was behind Nana, because cameras see what we can't. As the priest began to chant the rite of exorcism in Latin, Layla saw the air behind Nana's head begin to distort. It looked like heat waves rising from asphalt. Then, it turned into a gray, static-filled smoke. The smoke twisted and formed a face, a man's face, twisted in agony, screaming in silence. It was hovering right above Nana's neck, pulling itself out of her spine. "Sarah!" Layla screamed at her phone. "Look behind her! The smoke!" Suddenly, the FaceTime connection went haywire. The screen turned into a mess of green and purple blocks. The audio shrieked with digital feedback. Layla heard Father Thomas yell, "Be gone!" The last thing Layla saw before the call dropped was Nana collapsing back onto the pillow and that gray, smoky face lunging not away from the bed, but straight towards Sarah's phone camera. Beep, beep, beep. The call ended. Layla drove 12 hours straight to get home. By the time she arrived, Nana was gone. The family said she passed peacefully right after the episode. Father Thomas told them it was a wandering spirit, a hungry ghost that had latched onto Nana's dying body for one last meal. They buried Nana. They prayed. They moved on. But Layla couldn't move on. A week later, back in Chicago, Layla was scrolling through her phone. She realized that during the panic, she had accidentally taken a live photo or a screenshot during that final FaceTime call. She found the photo. Her heart stopped. There was Nana vomiting on the bed. There was the priest, terrified, and there was the smoke. Layla zoomed in on the gray, smoky face hovering above Nana. The ghost wasn't looking at the priest. It wasn't looking at the family. Its hollow, smoky eyes were staring directly into the camera lens. It was staring at Layla. And on its face, there wasn't fear. There was a grin that said, "I see you." Since that day, Layla covers her phone camera with tape, because sometimes, late at night when her battery is low and the screen flickers, she swears she can hear it coming from her phone speakers, the faint, wet sound of chewing. Crunch, crunch, crunch. Still hungry.